at the Indie Power Summit, filming professionals in the music business right now.
The lodge operates because they have a problem and they're making a lot of money with this. That's not a good thing. We're supposed to be out everybody has to get money. They overdo it. They can afford it. So they know I'm very knowledgeable.
All right, guys, come on in, fill in these front seats. This is serious stuff here. What an incredible induction on Michael Jackson, huh? You guys are part of history. Give it up for that. We have Forger. Roberto Noriega, what a great gift he gave to everybody right there. That's incredible. Nathan East. Nathan, thanks so much again. Appreciate. That was awesome. And of course, it was all made possible, you know, right there with Matt and talking about Quincy Jones and all that. So guys, move up. We got Twitch in the house from Canada. You need to get right up in these seats right up in here. Let's see who we got. Okay, guys, come in. If there's anybody outside or in the bathrooms, you definitely want to have them come in and not miss a beat here. Okay, so again, where's Mark? We have Mark. Mark nearby. Where is Mark? You guys need to come have a seat. If you're in the room, you need to be like right down in front. The back, you might as well be out in the parking lot or some other event. This is where the magic happens right here. Matter of fact, the people that are closer to the stage are actually going to get more out of this. You're not going to be distracted with the person in front of you.
The closer you get to the stage, the more money you'll make in your
future. We have a quick announcement. As this session ends, we're going to go into a special session with these tables back here. Like I say, we're going to take an hour break. If you want to order a salad or a sandwich or something, you know, that's up to you. But you can run around out here, but you might be late. We're going to have a manager's session starting right after that hour break. That I have some legendary managers. I don't want to walk in the room and you're, you know, down the block, you know, trying to figure it out. I mean, some super serious. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of knowledge here that you can glean here in the next hour. So, by show of hands, how many people want to join us for this special session and order something downstairs? Okay, we have some menus here. They're going to pass around. Again, there's some pads and some pens. Those pens should be open, you know. And once you start jotting down what you're going to try and order, and one by one, Mark is going to take you downstairs. You can order at the bar, and they're going to bring it up to you. 1:30, we're going to start this special session right here for those of us that are joining us. If you're going outside, like I say, please try and come back very quickly. You know what I mean? It's probably the best food on the block, and it's all going to cost about the same. So, you know, you might as well take advantage of this. Jesse, you going to be in on this? Okay.
That's true. My studio's right next door, and I eat here very often.
Exactly. This guy will tell you from experience.
Here at Chipotle, so.
Yes. So please join us for that right after this. This afternoon, we're going to get into a manager's panel and an artist and touring panel. And there's going to be some special inductions, almost as big as Michael Jackson. So some people will say even bigger. So get ready. This is an incredible day, and this is only the first of 3. So again, pace yourself, take notes. The more you put into this, the more you're going to get out of it. So you guys need to move up. There's some seats up here. I don't want anybody looking at any empty seats here. Come on up. Get in the front. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to do a quick introduction of the names, and each guy, Rich, why don't you just have everybody say a quick minute of some of their credits. We have some old school friends and some new people joining us, so please give their attention. And again, you can always pull Mike aside. But we have our moderator today is an old friend. He was here year one, just like James Leach, and I can't tell you how much that warms my heart. You guys are the wind in our sails. We try and, provide the most incredible information. And, it's not easy in this business. I've seen every conference go away except like an ASCAP that's got $1 million budget and they don't need to make a profit. Other than that, we've seen the Gavins and the Urban Networks and the, you name it, Jack the Rapper, and they all went away. So you need this information probably monthly. I wish we could do this every month. That, there's information like daily you need in this industry to stay competitive. But it takes all that we can to do it once a year. We appreciate you guys coming out. Again, these speakers are so busy, they can barely get out of their office for an hour or so. So we really appreciate their time. So we have Mike Pepe, who's a new gentleman here. He's at a 17 Hertz. This guy makes #1 rock albums and stuff you've heard on the radio. Please give it up for Mike Pepe.
Thank you very much. Good to see you all.
This is one of my dear friends. I can't even count the years. He saw me speak at a songwriter conference, early 80s probably. So we're probably talking about going on 35 plus years. I've known Shelley. I see him in Niedam in the south of France, at the Popcom in Germany. We're all over the world. And he is an outstanding writer, producer, many, many hits. Again, you guys are going to find out some of the stuff. Please give it up for Shelley Sondheim. And last but not least, Bat and Cleanup. He is the man of the hour. He's been on all of our panels. We love him to death. This is going to be writers right morphing into producers. We're going to bring Johnny Love up and bring some more producers into these writer producers. But incredible stuff. He has written the #1 smash for Madonna that you all know. You saw in the Grammys, 300 couples get married to. You hear him in the stadiums and all that. Open Your Heart. He's in there mixing on the remixes with Beyonce and Lady Gaga, all that. He's making hits right down the street right here by our office every day. Please give it up for Peter Rafelson. And as a special send-off, we're going to bring our friend James Leach back up because he's going back to our office to work with some of the biggest artists, the biggest writers in the world at CSAC. But since he's here, I want him to impart a little tidbit on how these hits, how he sees these writers winning. Please give it up to James Leach.
Woo. Okay. We have a room full of writers, if memory serves me correct. Right? Can you raise your hands again? Okay, great. Do what you do. You're in great company here. These folks here are going to tell you, they're going to give you the keys to, the potential keys to your kingdom, how to sustain what you do. It all begins with the song, okay? Your success all begins with the song. The quality of that song, how you craft it, what your messaging is, the passion, which is something I'm sure these guys will speak about, how to translate that passion into your words, and how to convey that message into your song that will have 300 couples getting married to it, okay? What makes a song a one-hit wonder and a legendary classic, okay? Those are things you want to think about as you're listening to this panel, when you go home and write, be inspired, and hopefully one day I'll see you in my office, if not in my office, in a panel where I'm sitting here listening to you tell your stories of success. All right? Have a fantastic day, everybody.
Appreciate it. From the Michael Jackson induction to kicking off our hit writers and producers panels. Thank you so much, James Leach, Nathan East. These guys are responsible for so many hits. And Again, Rich Ezra, you're in great hands here. Rich was the vice president of A&R over at Arista Records for the legendary Clive Davis. If anybody's had the opportunity to see the documentary or read the book on Clive Davis, someone who made all the hits from Whitney Houston on down, and you're in great hands. We appreciate Rich as always. He comes out every year that he can. He's a big part of this. And will you please give it up for Rich Ezra?
Thank you so much, Jay. Want to get a sense of the room before we begin. How many of you in this room are songwriters versus singers or versus musicians? How many of you are writers? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, how many of you do not write but you sing or you are a musician? Only 3 of you. Okay, interesting. So the rest of you write but you don't play an instrument at all. You play an instrument. Okay, but you also write. Okay, that's what I was going to say. Only 3 people in the room? That would be, okay, that's odd. All right. Okay, great. I just want to get a sense because, you know, when we talk about writing, it's always interesting to me. I think everyone up here with you guys is a writer-producer, which is distinct because we're going to talk about that distinction. I was just speaking with Mike about this before we started, that there was a time, and Peter, you remember this well, when the writer was the writer, and a producer was a producer, and they were 2 separate entities, and that has kind of melded over the years of, you know, working together, where that skill set really is demanded today. You can't just say, here, you produce it. It's almost like one and the same, where you have to be, if you're going to get work. Is that true?
Absolutely, and thanks for dating me. No, what's happened, guys, is that technology has totally become available and in the hands of everybody, right? But there was a time where just recording a demo required access to tools that were not in the hands of a writer, a studio, an engineer, a mixer, a board, a big room that was millions and millions of dollars of ownership, right? And yes, writers originally were separated by what are called authors and composers. There would be a piano player that was a composer, and an author would sit there and write the lyric to the composition. Now remember, composing included melody. It was not top line. It was all the music composing, and then just a lyricist, which would be the author, right? Eventually, people were able to do more than one skill and memorialize it, record it into what we call a demo, right? And that changed the whole game. And then you had guys who eventually now call beat makers, which is, I think, a funny word because it's more than a beat. It is actually the music minus the top line, which is including melody and lyric, and then another person who may not even be in the room or ever meet the person that made the production track, come in and lay down what we call top line, which is a vocal that includes a lyric and a melody. And it's the interesting part of this whole process. I don't want to talk too much about it because we've got a lot to cover, but it's changed the nature of what a song actually is. There was a day where songwriting was a craft unto itself. And truth be told, it was much more deliberate in the actual process of writing. It wasn't about what felt good or what sounded good. It was about writing something specifically as a writer and had nothing to do with production. No arrangement, no virtually music other than maybe some chords and melody. But if you listen to music up until maybe the 70s, you can actually hear a difference in the way melodies work, because the melodies were being written while the music was being written, which means that the chords could follow the melody. It can't happen that way no more. People sing the melody last, right? You put your beat down and then you throw lines up on top of it. You can't change the beat to follow the melody no more. But what's amazing is if you listen to older songs, the chords, Burt Bacharach, can you name some amazing writers? Stephen Sondheim.
Yeah.
guys, it's like, why are we listening to these old white fools, right? Well, guess what? Check them out. Because the melody and the chords were utterly brilliant. And I would recommend that even to understand what it means to be a craftsman of writing music and song, it's good to know how it changed and what it came from.
Yeah, and I mean, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, the Motown songbook was a classic example of that. The Holland Dozier Holland songbook, Bacharach and David. Yeah, of the point you're making. Mike, you and I were speaking earlier about the fact that when you came into the business, to jump off of Peter's point, that you talked about how you came into it from the technological thing of Pro Tools. Talk about, because that was kind of the turning point of everything. Speak about that point, because that was your entry into where you're at today.
Yeah, I was 12 years ago. I was interning, so this was early to mid 2000s. I was interning at a recording studio out east, and it was headed up by a bunch of older engineers and producers. Great work they did. I mean, Hootie the Blowfish, R.E.M., all these great records, but it was all tape. And the studio got a Pro Tools rig. Pro Tools, I think maybe 4 at the time. It was old. I mean, it was, but I knew it because I loved Pro Tools. I liked the idea of it. I saw what kind of was going on there. Trent Reznor kind of like was one of the early adopters of it, and he was really making waves of what he was doing digitally. I thought it was really cool, so I learned it because I just thought it was cool. And I'll never forget, we were doing a record for Zamba for this guy named Anthony Hamilton. And,
Sure, great singer.
Yeah, I worked on his second record, and that's when he got the Pro Tools rig, and the engineer and producer were freaking out because they had no idea how we're gonna make this record, And I was like, oh, I know how to run Pro Tools, and really quickly it turned into we don't want Mike here, but we need him here, which is when I could start charging.
Make yourself indispensable.
Yeah.
Indispensable.
All of a sudden, I wasn't in the intern anymore. I was a Pro Tools guy, And the cool thing about that was my entry point. So then I started to set up some microphones I liked and try things out, and in the room, you know what I mean? Right? Yeah. Being with them, I learned that task, and they started to trust me with more responsibility. Like, oh, patch in this compressor that you want on this vocal today, whatever. Like, oh, great. And I was 19 years old, so I was like, this is freaking awesome. Yeah. So that's how I got my real start. Actually, was just by Pro Tools editing. Actually, yeah.
And by coming into it via that work. I mean, it reminds me of, I remember when, producers from that era that you were speaking of, when you went to work at that studio, spoke to me about the same thing when they were getting the digital consoles for the first time in the late 70s. They used to have people come in from Sony or Mitsubishi to run them. Here they're running the session, but they can't run the machine. Right. They have to have
and this
somebody
was basically
run it.
The next era of that, what was happening, and I was kind of in the midst of all of that going on.
Right.
It literally took an army, guys, and to
Back
be
then.
able to sit on an iPhone, really, literally, and make a whole album that's digitally might as well be as clean and same resolution as a $1 billion studio.
Yeah.
It makes it real easy to forget where this all started, right? But I don't care. I think it's wonderful, and I tried to give up my idea of being an audiophile, right? It's got to be, everybody's flipping out about analog versus digital. It is about the song, and it is about how to write a great song. And I would only say that if you've never done this, guys, try writing a song without technology and see how good it is. Sit down with one instrument or a friend that plays. Don't record it. Don't even record it. Sit there, write the damn thing, and play it before it even gets to any technology.
It's interesting, yeah, that's actually how I start every band that comes in my studio. I don't even turn Pro Tools on, I sit there with an acoustic guitar with them, and if they can't write the song with that, then we don't start using Pro Tools. That's the only way I start with bands.
Let me ask you guys in the audience, what are the processes that you guys write with? Is it with an instrument? Is it with technology? Yeah, computer? What is it?
I kind of just sit there in my home studio and start out with basic bass lines and kind of let that kind of guide.
Oh, thank you.
Don't you guys just love microphones, As performers, you're yes, I'm on the speakers. Anyways, Yeah, I just start with my home studio and I start building kind of like a bass line. And if I'm with my production team, we start with just a bass idea. What is the song? So the idea stays concise, and then we kind of build the verse. Sometimes always the chorus. I don't know about you guys as songwriters. I find the chorus always comes first and kind of guides the rest of the song. So I'm not sure about anyone else in the room, but that's kind of the basic process. Is because I like what you said. Is music used to be built together. Piano, voice, you would write a song with your songwriters as a unit. So I think that that's kind of something I use as a basis right now. So I like try to make it all together. Even the mixing, sometimes kind of mixing as we go, just to see how it sounds, right? That's what I've been doing.
So it starts with an instrument with you.
Yeah, exactly.
What about other people? Yeah, right here, next to you. And then you in the back, yeah, afterwards.
Jackson and Dr. Nation, they were talking about being in the moment, you know, and he got his memorized lyrics and everything on the microphone.
A lot of prep.
Yeah, and so as an artist and a producer kind of together, I always try to come at a different, each song a little differently. Sometimes I'm going to start with a guitar or a drum, and other times I'm really trying to get an emotional point across, you know, and so I'll start with the vocal context in that situation. But the duration of the project for me really is based off of the ability to continue to go back and work out lyrics and song simultaneously throughout the process. Not so much, okay, we gotta wait for the song and then we put the lyrics on top.
Right.
It's kind of everything sandwiched in, and we just keep shaving it down until it sounds
Like a
clean.
sculpture.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Cool.
Exactly. Yes.
This sounds crazy, but the lyric always comes to me first.
Yeah, with Elton
Always,
John, he's the same way.
always.
Elton John has never composed a song without getting Bernie's lyric first. He says it informs his tone, his sensibility, what he's going to write about, how he's going to do it, and what the whole vibe is. And he says he's tried it the other way, and it turns out to be like shit. That's his quote, but you're right, that's interesting. A lot of people are like that.
It's always the lyric, and actually the melody comes to me in my head when I'm just walking around the house or just driving, whatever. But songwriting, to me, singing is acting with a tune thrown into it. So I always make sure that I have a message, a positive message in the lyric. And so when I went into the studio like a year ago to do my first album, I worked with a great producer. I had the lyric, had the melody, I didn't have the right beat. I already did a demo with a beat, didn't like it, wasn't it. So I had a dream about where I wanted it to go. So I found a kid that did some beats for me, and we came up with the right rhythm. That's how it works for me. Lyric, melody, arrangement.
Okay, so it's just different things. Did you want to add something? Yeah. Okay, go ahead. And then the gentleman in the back.
I'm just gifted to just hear a song, a track with no lyrics. If you play any tracks in front of me, I just come up and do one take. However, I'll do two takes. I do one take. If I hear the music, I can do the song. It's just a gift that I have.
Okay, all right.
Thanks. As technology has progressed, it seems like when I first started writing songs in high school, it seemed like the guitar, just playing guitar and writing a song was like the most important thing. I didn't have a lot of money, not a lot of computers. Now that technology is really advanced, it seems like a lot of writers go there first, right? So instead of fleshing out the whole song on an acoustic guitar or just a piano or just a bass, we sort of start laying things down and jumping in maybe to the fun part, but too quickly. So it seems like what happens is you get this idea, this song that may sound great, but now you have to force lyrics onto it, and the song hasn't been performed yet. So in a sense, the artist doesn't even really know the potential of the song at all, or where their voice or performance fits in, because they've got this idea now, but they don't even understand how their voice correlates with it. And I feel like maybe technology has sort of kind of turned things around just slightly, but just going back to what you said, just playing it on a simple guitar first, seems like maybe that's why there's so many great, iconic songs from back in the day.
You raise a great point, and I just want to say something. I'll give her this girl the mic. She wanted to add. But to what was your name?
Chris.
Chris. So there's some interesting observations that I have learned and made through my life, and that is it's hard to understand what the goal is when you're writing. You want to hear something, you feel that it's right, and you think that it's good, right? So that's what usually makes it. But good and right are not always the same thing when you have a job to do, right? Sometimes you have to actually, and this is where the craftsmanship of songwriting matters, because a lot of people can only do what they think is good. What if I said, hey, I need you to write a bad song for me? Now, I've had that job a number of times. I've done, there's a scene in a movie or a TV show, and there's an amateur songwriter, and they need a bad song, and that's right. Bad is right, okay? I've written for Barbara Streisand, I've written for Madonna. Guess what? Madonna can't hit no Barbara notes. And you're lucky if you can write a good song with 5 notes. That's right. Now Barbara, 5 notes, boring, right? She's gonna go 3 octaves or whatever. So it's just something I just want to say that's really good to try to do something that you don't necessarily do naturally, to see how flexible you can be and how skilled you can be at doing something that doesn't just come in one take. If I said, this is great, but it's completely wrong for the artist, I want you to go back and do something that didn't come in one take. He's got to sing it, not you. And he can't hit those notes, and he's white, and he got no reference to what it's like to be in the hood or on the street or riding on a car or da-da-da. He wants to write about running through a frickin' flower field on acid. Okay? Now what are we gonna do? We're in big trouble now. So putting yourself in the perspective of a different artist and a different job, what the job is, very hard and important. Just try it.
I think actually, if I can expand on that for a second, because that's such, like, that's, if you take nothing away from that, that's like, that's it right there. And when I was younger, I didn't understand that. I played in bands, I played guitar, and I would get into rooms with artists, and I would do what I wanted to do and say, well, I don't understand, why do you like it? This is great, right? I love it. And there's a reason why when I get a new client from a label or something, the first thing I do is I drive around and listen to their music for days and study them. Before they come in, before they come in, I study them. I study, oh wow, they really like these keys, or this vocalist can really, his sweet spot's G minor, or whatever that thing is, or wow, this guy talks about drugs all the time, he must do a lot of drugs. or you know, seriously, or seeing their progression over their 3 records before they come into my studio, whatever, and learning what my job is gonna be with that band, you know? I think it's why a lot of us also play in our own bands, because we also want our expressive creativity too. I play in a band because I just want to play what I want to play sometimes, you know? But 6 days a week, I'm in with bands where I'm tailoring to them. Obviously, I'm hired because they want my taste, which you can't buy or really learn, it's just your taste. So I have to infuse some of that, but it also is serving the client. You have to remember, these are your clients. You know, it's do a job, and hopefully you're getting paid for it. So it really is a job, you know? Yeah, it's a fun job, it's great, but it is.
One thing I'm getting in listening to both of you, which is a really interesting point that hasn't been said, but I want to ask about it, is there a difference in your experiences, you've touched on it, and so did you, Peter, of writing songs for the market, or writing songs that someone out there is going to record, versus writing songs for yourself? You talked about that whole process of being in the car, listening to your clients' work prior to meeting them. That's somebody who's what we call in the business self-contained. That's an artist who writes their own material. It's an interesting point to the extent that from an A&R perspective today, very few people in the marketplace are self-contained. If you look at the artists out there making records, whether it's Beyonce or Katy Perry or whoever, they're written by 5 or 6 people each song. That's distinct from the days of Elton John wrote his own material, Bon Jovi wrote, you know, whoever, Springsteen. Is there a difference, do you think, in that process of how that's done?
I'd like to chime in on that because as I'm listening to my friends talk about writing, and me that changed it is all about collaboration. You know, it was spoken about a lot in the panel about Quincy's 18, so he's got musicians and, you know, engineers and people around. When I decided to like transition from guitar guy, you know, session guy, touring guy, to I want to be on the other side of the glass, writer, producer guy, and started to really listen to Diane Warren and Glenn Ballard and Jam and Lewis and Teams and Cirkin and Rogers, and then I got a whole bunch of new Swedish friends, and the whole Backstreet, if you remember, and NSYNC, and there was Merlin music, and there was, you know, so
Max Martin and
there's so many teams of people collaborating. Peter had his operations with teams from South Korea doing that pop music. So for me, it's because there's so many elements involved in the writing of the song. Now, I could take a guitar, sit in North Hollywood Park, or sit at my home, and write a song. You know, I think about form, I think about melody, I think about lyrics, I think about concepts. But what I'm really honest, when I'm really honest with myself, I know there's a lot of elements that are going to go into this song. There's vocal production, there's programming, there's engineering, there's great Pro Tools engineers, there's so many elements that are going to go into the song. And so I found all of my work is collaborations. Collaborations with folks that are much better at what they do than I do. I guess I'd be called an executive producer more than a producer, because I'd rather have Mike on Pro Tools and Peter on, you know, programming and remixing, pull around like Quincy. I mean, what a mentor and what a.
Some of the best producers don't play an instrument.
That's right. Yeah, and that's true. I feel like the best records I've done and produced are when the band is really involved. You know, when the collaboration is there. You know.
With lyricists and with, you know, I've learned so much about vocal production from singers that have been my clients,
sure.
and their background singer, you know, friends, and you know, because of that collaboration, I became a much better vocal producer. I'm much more in demand vocal producer.
I have a question for the audience. How many people in this room have ever written an entire song and created the music or the beat or the recording entirely by themselves? How many people have never done this with a composer, with another collaboration? Has anybody ever done it without collaborating in any way whatsoever?
Like R. Kelly style, maybe, you know, fully all in one guy.
Will you write the music and the lyrics yourself?
Has anybody done this never by themselves? Okay, so it's interesting. More people do it entirely alone than have done it only as collaborators, and this goes back to what we were saying earlier. Singer-songwriter who's completely self-sufficient. There's kind of two ways this business has gone. It's, you know, the earliest example would be Bob Dylan or Arlo Guthrie or folk music, where a guitar player was a poet and they could just play by themselves and that's it. And that, you know, evolved into people like Sheryl Crow or John Mayer, right, or Ed Sheeran, who I think for the most part writes alone. Does he collaborate a lot?
They do collaborate a lot in Nashville, you know.
But they're capable of sitting there and writing alone and performing the song alone just by themselves, right? Versus what Rich was referring to, which was an extremely collaborative process. It's almost like the popular vote. You've heard about that. And pop music is made by popular vote. When you get 5 or 6 of the top writers working together, we can't all be wrong, right? Well,
writing by committee.
Right, yeah. Exactly, but that's kind of how pop records are made anyway, so it's a different mindset.
Yeah.
But I wanted to hear how do you go about writing?
Oh yeah, I like how you guys brought up the difference between co-writing and writing on your own, because I do have 2 different processes for those. So when I'm writing by myself, I sound like a crazy person, like mumbling into my phone, because the melody and the lyrics do come at me because I'm a singer. And for the longest time, I didn't play an instrument. So just now I'm actually backwards engineering the chords and things like that for older songs. But then when I'm writing with other people, it usually starts out as a therapy session. Like, tell me what's going on in your life. Like, maybe I don't have that experience knowing what it's like to be a black woman in America, but hearing that perspective and saying like, I think our commonality is that we're both women in America, and like, you can write a song about feminism or empowerment, and like, finding that commonality between the two of us is like a way to open my mind up to so many more songs.
So how many people here have ever written a song with no pretense of who may or may not wind up being the artist on it? Only a few of us. And how many people have never written a song, meaning always know who they want to sing on it? Okay. And the rest of you, kind of a combination, I don't know, it doesn't add up to the full room, so I don't know how that works. But
There's the shy ones here.
One thing, and this goes back to my just recommendation to learning the craft is, try both. Always try both. Try writing completely alone, try collaborating. Try writing the music first, try writing the lyrics first. I've written the lyrics first, or been given a lyric and then had to write it. It drove me insane. It makes no sense to me how that happens. Bernie Taupin and Ellen are just like, that's totally backwards to me personally. But I did it because I needed to understand. The more each one of you understands what the other one does, the better collaborator you'll be, even if it's not something you're going to be part of in that collaboration.
There's something Peter's talking about that he's brought up a couple times, and I think there's a real diamond in this remark. And I'll tell you why, because I'm involved in a project that really encompasses this. Rich brought up the Motown songbook, okay, and what Peter's been talking about is learning the craft and how older songs are written. This isn't in any way to diminish the wonderfulness of native instruments or Ableton Live or all tools and all technology and all remixes, because I'm really deep into that and I love it dearly. But I've recently gotten involved in a project that has to do with Philadelphia, the sound of Philadelphia. So I don't know how many, I know there's maybe a little age difference, but if you're really familiar with Gamble and Huff and the OJs and, like when Obama used, hey, no, stop it. Stop it's not right, and money, money, money from the Trump thing. So I've been given a role with my good friend Alan Sletsky, who did the Standing in the Shadows of Motown movie, the documentary about the Funk Brothers. So we now have the unmined story of the sound of Philadelphia, from the original studio Cygnus sound and whatnot. And so I'm listening now to all of these older songs that, of course, I remember, Backstabbers, and they're great written songs, and we're also going to do new treatments with these songs, new remixes with younger artists. So having a chance to again get dialed into the sound of Philadelphia and how many hits came out of that songbook or that era. So the ability to understand the chords and the melodies and the lyrics and everything working together, I think is something that will propel and further one's own writing in today's world, in today's form, in today's tools.
Let me ask you guys something, because you're all writers and you're all producers, and we've talked about this combination, but how much distinction, or do you make distinction between the writing process today and the record-making process once the song is finished? How integral are they to each other? I mean, you listen to the songs of a band you're working with, I take it they're self-contained, meaning they're generating that material themselves. You now have to take that song and make the record. You're working with an artist. Is there a difference in the process, or have we come to a point where it's all one today? Do you know what I'm saying? Or is there a distinction anymore?
I try and make the distinction myself.
Okay.
Because if the band is getting super obsessed with what the lead guitar is going to sound like in the middle 8 on day 1 when we don't have a chorus lyric, we're on the wrong path, okay? It's not going to work. We don't know that. So I try and say, okay, the first 3 days we're just writing. Sure, we'll lay down some demo ideas, and hey, if Greg has a great guitar idea, yeah, we'll demo it out, but I'm not setting up microphones, we're not going in deep on drum edits or anything like that, we're just going to be writing, and when the song is correct, then day 4, 5, 6, whatever the schedule says, at that point we move into recording and true production where I will be getting the best takes, I'll be helping mold parts. Greg, maybe that guitar part laid down on day 1 is cool, but why don't we try adding this chord in there now instead, things like that. So I think it's key for me, and this is just me, to make the distinction between writing days and production days on the schedule. I mean, I keep a calendar when bands are in with me for weeks at a time, so they can see, oh, today is Mark's day, we're doing drums all day. Okay, day 3, the whole band needs to be here because we're all writing. You know what I mean? I try and make the distinction for structure. A lot of that is because I think artists need structure. So I think, especially in the studio, it gets really easy to be unstructured, and it can be dangerous. So I do try and make that distinction.
I think that's a great point, and another exercise, if you will, would be to limit yourself to how much time you give to the writing process.
Exactly.
Try to finish a song, just the hell of it. Give yourself a day or an hour. See how far you can get.
Yep.
What you find is that you're not spending 55 minutes of that hour tweaking on synth sounds.
Exactly.
Right?
Because that can happen real easy.
Yeah. And by the way, having your own studio where you can work anytime you want, all day, 24/7, man, that is a luxury that breeds too much choice. It really does, guys. I'm telling you, I have 14 studios now. And guess what I'm longing to do more than anything?
Go to the beach.
No. Come over to Mike's place and write in his place.
And hang out at my place.
Yeah, because he ain't gonna put up with me camping out there for a week. Right?
It's a really good point.
We got a session to write, Mike. We got from 3 to 5.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I love that restriction, and what winds up happening is you really realize there is a difference between writing and producing. Now, that said, ain't nothing more inspiring to me as a writer than to come up with a banging audio sonic sound. If I hear one sample, I just like, I want to write that song. It's a 5-second sample, but it inspires me. Part of it is because I know, guess what? I don't have to come up with a great sound. It's there right now. Now I can focus on writing.
Exactly.
But what does wind up happening, and this goes back to this woman who said that she wrote lyric and melody first, but eventually this craft, and you try enough of this shit, and you get good at it, I hope, and then you don't need to do any of it. More and more I wake up with entire songs written entirely, and I literally lean over in the middle of the night. My wife is like, "What the fuck is he doing again?" I'm grabbing my iPhone, I'm hitting voice memo, and I'm literally saying da 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 da, and I'm like, and then I'll put the word in or two, and then I'll put the drum beat, and I'll go. Give it a little bit of groove, and then I'll even tell myself, go from the 1 to the 4, back to the 2 and to the 5. And it's done. I go into the studio and I'm like, what the hell did I say to myself? Oh, damn. And I just throw it down and it's rewritten. The point is, all these exercises are so that you are not dependent on what you're using to exercise. It'd be like saying, work out with enough weights and you'll be strong and you can lift something. You don't need the weights to lift it. You've got muscles now. Work those muscles.
I wanted to also make a suggestion that with the writing process and the production process, I sense that we're all here in a professional career capacity. It's like, well, we want to make money at this, we want to have a career at doing this, and you're here to gain the lessons from people who are successful at doing it, and I'm sure you're successful in some ways too. But the point that I'm trying to make is that you might want to think about, from the get-go, where is my song going? I mean, am I writing a song for a television show? Am I writing a song for my favorite pop artist? Am I writing a song for a rock band? Am I writing a song for the Latin market? Am I writing a song, to have that sort of goal in mind, that's the way I've operated so that at my end game, I have some places and doors to knock on, because I had that intention that I wanted to write a Latin pop kind of song for that market, and then go find the artists and the publishers and the people who are involved in that, because I kind of crafted it that way. I've been very successful placing songs in television and film, doing exactly what I just told you. And I have to put a plug into my buddy Rich, because he's one of the people that's helped me so much. He is a walking encyclopedia of everybody to reach. I mean, that's his business. He is the music business registry, and I think I was one of Rich's first customers or clients, and got the books of the A&R and the publishers and the TV and film and the lawyers, so that when I had my song that I thought was going to be kind of like a, you know, Emilio Estefan, John Cicada, whatever I was into at that time, Ricky Martin, you know, Luis Fonse, whatever, then I had a way to reach all of those people in that line of work. So having an end game, you know, we're talking about craft, I know that, but now you have your song. Now what? Now what? I mean, was it, if it was just to do for hobby, that's cool, the church, band, you know, jam in the garage, but if it's, I want to sell it, I want somebody to record this, I want somebody to buy this, I think you have to think about where that song...
We call that supply and demand, guys, and if there is no concept or care or consideration of what the demand is, who are you going to supply? Yourself? We call that masturbation. You know, I can sit here alone in a room, but ain't nobody outside this room care what I'm doing. So I highly recommend, and this is what Shelley's really saying, is figure out what the opportunities are, and maybe that song might be a little bit different. Damn, if I'd only known that they needed it in Spanish. Well, it's the same song, but we just put a hook in, or it's about a Latin subject matter, or it's got a flamenco guitar sound instead of an electric guitar. Whatever the change is, if you'd known that going in, it could have been the difference between landing that opportunity or not.
Yeah, that's a great point. I just spent, I guess 2 weeks ago, I spent like 2 days straight writing this J-pop song with two of people that I co-write with. And we got the opportunity, and it was like very obvious what they wanted. One Direction sounding, 15-year-old boy band. Is that what I do? Well, sure, it was those days, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it was those days, and we did a damn good job at it too, you know? But had somebody just said, oh, write a J-pop song, I would have been like, no, I don't, you know?
So that's the exact point I'm making. I mean,
exactly, yeah.
Mike had an opportunity.
Intention.
Exactly. Because he has the skills that we were talking about, the writing skills, the Pro Tools skills, the musical skills, he can bring all those to the table for a very specific... With the hope that you sell something, and then you kind of prove to yourself, well, I should do that. I mean, I just got validation because they just paid me to do this.
Right, exactly.
Otherwise, you've all heard the term one-hit wonders.
Yeah.
Those are generally people who could only do one thing.
Right.
I mean, and that's great, it was a hit, but that's why it's only one.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So, I think it's Bob Lefsetz, who's a music industry blogger. I love him too. He said, he said one thing one time, and it was just like in a passing sentence. He said, the greats, and he means the greats in any field, are always the ones who didn't do it once, but again and again and again and again, whether it was Motown artists or Stones or U2.
Again and again and again as well, guys.
Yes. That's right.
The year I landed 2 #1 songs on the Hot 100, I'd written over 100 songs with 100 different collaborators. I made it a point. Every 3 days I was going to bang out another song with completely different people, and by sheer volume, that was Stevie Nicks and Madonna.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, he's given one interview to a Swedish magazine, and that was Max Martin did it about a year and a half ago. He said that very thing. He said, everybody, he said, I've had a lot of #1 hits, but he says, no one knows the volume of stuff that I've written because nobody's heard it. Nobody talks about the failures. Nobody talks about the thousands of songs in my career that have never seen the light of day or never gone anywhere. They only talk about the 23 that...
Well, a great point. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I've had 2 #1 rock singles, 1 #1 rock record. So put it together, that's 3 things.
Right.
You already know I've been doing this 13 years.
Right.
6 days a week. you can put together that the top like half 1% of what I've done. Not that the other stuff isn't good. As a matter of fact, I think I've done stuff that's better, but those were the right place, the right time, right band, right opportunity. But it's not about not doing those things. I would never have gotten those things had I not done the literally probably 500 records prior to that. You know?
Let me ask you guys,
10,000 hours.
if we can talk about some of the things that I think the audience might be interested in, of what are different ways or different elements that you can talk about that inspire creativity or inspire your own creativity or give you a sense of like, you know, is it reading? Is it going to the movies? Is it spending areas in other art forms? What are the things that do it for you?
I mean, I can take that first, if that's okay. I think personally for me, even if I don't have I'm booked very often, but even if I'm not, I go to my studio and I work anyway. I just do something, you know? I personally like getting out of the studio to get inspiration, you know? I'll go to the beach with my girlfriend, I'll eat a nice meal, I'll watch a movie, I'll read. Reading is big, actually, for me personally. And sometimes I just won't listen to music, actually, like purposely, because it gets in your head. And then you just start to recreate something you've heard. And so sometimes I would drive to the beach with my girlfriend and literally just talk and sit in silence, or sit on the beach and not be around music for like a day. And that's just, I know that sounds, it's crazy because I'm there 6 days a week, and then I come back and I feel like I have more ideas actually, because they're unused. And I've found other ways to inspire myself rather than just going on iTunes and playing the top 10, you know?
So first of all, to that point, I have a hard time listening to music recreationally. It's really tough for me. I hear music, and wherever I am,
I'm really mean that for you because I'm in the same spot.
I'm like, can we just turn the music off? Otherwise, I'm going to want to re-EQ the kick drum.
Exactly. Yes.
I have nothing to do.
There's just so much 200 in this.
But as far as inspiration goes, there was an early lesson that I learned in life, and it was how to visualize, and that came from learning a little bit about meditation and about manifestation. And if you can see it, it can be real, right? So one of the things that I've always said, and it's important to know that I come from a lineage of storytellers and filmmakers, is that I approach everything I do visually. And I actually love to imagine and visualize what images the song portrays, right? It's really also much easier to, again, make a decision if you understand what the end feeling is that you want to have, and then how to achieve that feeling. And if you know what the end feeling is, right, what the result is, what am I supposed to make you feel? Like, you want to cry, you want to laugh, you want to fuck, whatever the hell it is that you're trying to get feeling out of, then every step of the way, you know, does this bring you closer to that feeling, or does it not help get to that feeling? And it really helps pinpoint whether something is serving its purpose. Right or wrong,
great point.
You know, I don't know, but serving its purpose.
Setting those goals, like I was saying earlier, like scheduling out with bands, goal-oriented is so key. Because then you know if you reach
what
that
the
goal or
end
not.
game is.
Exactly.
And by the way, the last thing I just wanted to add, and I'm not sure that quite to the point of what's the inspiration, but what Shelley was saying about collaborating, guys, the collaboration does not stop when the song is done.
Right.
In this industry, you absolutely need an army of people, even when the song is amazing, spectacular, best thing I've ever done, goes on a shelf. Why is it on a shelf versus on the radio? And in my childhood and early adulthood, it was thousands of people that had to be involved for a song to be #1 on the radio. Promoters, distributors, marketers. I mean, nowadays you can put something straight up on Spotify and either pray or get busy on Instagram, and maybe you'll get lucky. But nonetheless, guys, collaboration is not just about creativity in a studio. Like Sheldon said, when he finishes or when he's thinking about what to do, he's collaborating with this man right here, Rich. They're not in the studio writing together, they're collaborating on a business opportunity.
Great point.
And that collaboration goes way beyond notes and sounds.
Yeah, which is what all of you have done coming to IES, and why we're even sitting here, because I mean, I've seen Rich at events for a couple decades, and it's reliable. He's there, he's studying, he's building his network. Same thing with Jay, and he was right. When I first moved to LA and I got off the road touring as a guitar player, I wanted to start the whole songwriting thing, and I went to this seminar. I joined all the groups, come to the events just like you do. Go as a student sometime, as a speaker sometime, whatever, and building this collaborative network. I feel very grateful to say that I do have a worldwide network of professionals that I work with and I speak to all the time. But this was the Songwriters Guild Association. It was the group doesn't exist now. And there was this speaker named Jay Warsinski, and it's like, I think he was a president of a label or something like that, and I went, and he inspired me so much because he was so welcoming and just exactly what we're doing here. Why you paid your time and your money and your attention to come, maybe make a connection and meet folks. So I can't emphasize enough what Peter said. It's not even like nobody wants to work with a jerk. It's just the more friends that you have, and it's a life condition thing. The more people that you can connect with about what it is you're trying to do, your specific goal, because everybody's got a different lane.
It takes a village, guys. Music is communication, and communication requires more than one human being, right? You don't communicate with yourself.
And everybody's got their own lane. You have success in your own lane. What you're doing and what you're doing and what you're doing is really possibly different than what I'm doing. But we all have the opportunity, particularly if, as it was said on the earlier panel, Nathan East, he goes to the sessions with his game on. Nathan doesn't show up like rusty and the bass is not tuned. I mean, he's a consummate musician at the highest level. So, of course, we have to develop that craft, but the other craft we have to develop are the relationships.
So he can get called.
And call back.
That's what I meant, yeah.
Not even call, but even call back.
That's right. Yeah.
You said something great. You said that it starts out as a therapy session. A lot of the most successful writers and producers in this industry, you know what they studied in school? Not music, psychology.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing to think that when people say to me, Peter, what do you do for a living? I say, I'm a babysitter. I'm a professional babysitter. Yeah, but once I get that gig, I can then, understand how to write music and to keep the child happy, right?
Yep.
Here, to give them what they want.
It's like,
Think of it that way, man. I'm a babysitter.
I could speak on, I'm sorry. I could speak on that for like 3 hours, man. Because
he has to deal with 4 or 5 children at a time.
Seriously, dude. Like, I got a session tomorrow. I'm like, it's gonna be babysitting. One of my really great friends, I think one of the best producers, engineers I've ever known, Eric Valentine. You guys know of Eric Valentine. Maybe not Third Eye Blind, Smash Mouth, Slash. I mean, he's had his hands on a ton of stuff. But anyway, him and I have talked an extent about the psychology of what we do. It's like kind of half of it, I think, it really is. You actually were, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. What was your name again? July. It's August. Okay, that's great. I love that. Okay, I love that. It's wonderful. I love that name.
It's always July.
It's always July. It's always summer. You spoke about how, like, the therapy session, and when I was a staff engineer, like I said, when I was like 13 years ago, one of the things that I learned, skill sets that I learned that I didn't expect was being a staff person, whoever is booked, you work with, So one day it could be a gospel group, and I needed to be able to talk to them, communicate with them, different language, different vernacular. Then the next day is a metal band, and I can't be gospel guy anymore. I gotta be metal guy, and a metal guy can't work on gospel records. You have to kind of chameleon a little bit. I mean, you have to be yourself, of course, but you really have to be able to know how to serve your client. And some of that, a lot of it comes in therapy, sort of sessions and the psychoanalysis of what we do. I can't stress that enough. Really can't stress that enough. And even though now I work with bands pretty much solely, every band is gonna be different. I just had a band in the other day, I didn't know they were Mormon. I had no idea that they were Mormon. So but I was told that from the A&R, which is great, because then I could adapt to that and be like, okay, well, that means I probably shouldn't be talking about this or that, or bring this up about writing. And
But I can propose to 3 of the members.
But right, exactly, yeah. So anyway, I have 3 weddings coming up next year. Yeah, but anyway, that's like psychoanalysis of what we do is huge, huge.
It's interesting listening to you. I remember an interview with Jimmy Page, who is somebody who I have such admiration for, not only because he was...
Hold up. How many people know who Jimmy Page is?
Who knows Jimmy Page? Okay.
Oh, wow.
Jimmy
impressed.
Page was the founder and founder of Led Zeppelin, one of the great bands. But my point wasn't about Led Zeppelin. My point was about that Jimmy Page in this interview, what I found so fascinating, I've always thought that if Jimmy Page wasn't Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, he would have gone down in history as one of the greatest record producers of all time, and one of the most innovative. And he said something which, what you just said, reminded me of it. He was talking about how he came to a place emotionally and creatively in his life where he found the confidence to produce the band himself, which is, he did that from the first record. And he said, and the place I came to was precisely what you said. He said, I had done thousands of commercials, thousands of sessions. I mean, oh my God, he was one of the great session guitarists of all time.
I didn't know that.
The Kinks, no, but he was the guy that you went to for, I mean, he talked about Shirley Bassey in the morning, Tide detergent in the afternoon, some symphony in the evening. I mean, from 1961 to 1960 until he got into like the Yardbirds, that's what he did. And he said that it was that kind of experience of learning the psychology of the musicians, the psychology of the producers, the psychology of the arrangers. And in those days you worked with lots of people. It wasn't just like him going in by himself. He said that's what gave me the confidence and the knowledge to be able to, now I have the vision of what I want to do for myself and my band. Otherwise, he said, I'd always worked with producers. But he said it was from them that I learned this.
And actually, if I can go, one more point, I don't want to talk too much about this because I really can go deep on this, is I would love to say that the turning point for my career, this is just me, was a microphone or a drum set or something. To me, personally, only my experience, the turning point for my career was when I was able to understand that fully. When I was understand how to talk and get into the artist's head correctly and babysit them a bit, that's when I started to get bigger records, when I started to get hits. The technical part of me wants to be when I used a certain EQ, because that would be so much more romantic to me, but it's not. It was really when I started to understand that concept.
Communication is right. Everybody's heard music is the universal language. It ain't. I got news for you. Hip hop is its own language. Pop music is its own language. K-pop is its own language. Country is its own language. Folk music. Y'all should learn how to speak a couple of languages if you want to be versatile as songwriters. Otherwise, call yourself a hip-hop songwriter.
Right.
Or a rock songwriter. It'd be like saying, hey man, I speak one language and I'm about to go to every country in the world and be fluent there.
Good luck.
I know, I've made a point of this. I think I know 22 sentences in 22 languages perfectly. One sentence, but I can say it so well. Spitimo, spitacchio, spitti, carivacchio. Everybody goes, oh, you're Greek. I'm like, no, but I know how to say home, sweet home in Greek.
That's fucking cool,
man. And that is its own language, its own vibe. You know one word, and trust me, it goes so far. Man, half the time I'm listening to rap music and hip hop music, and I don't understand a damn word meaning, and I will literally make it a point to figure out what are they talking about? What is ice? How many people know what ice means? Okay, 3, 4 of you? Diamonds look like ice. And when you hear the word ice in hip-hop language, and I call it a language, it means diamonds.
And they say the best way to learn a language is what? Go to the country, right?
Well, right.
So I say if you want to learn a language, go to the session. Be humble, be there, and take it.
I want to see Rosetta Stone come out with a hip-hop.
With the hip-hop chat, that'd be great. I would love that.
So you're hearing a little, I'm sorry, I just want to say, you're hearing a little bit, or maybe a lot about like the producers, because we've kind of combined our writer-producer panel, and you're hearing the psychology of working producers dealing with a lot of personalities. But you know, the thing that I want to emphasize or encourage you all is that as you go to events, you know, you might not be producers for other artists, but these kind of versatilities that Paul Schaefer would have, working with so many kinds of talents, that Larry Carlton would have.
Tell them, Paul Schaefer for 10 years.
Do you know who Paul Schaefer was?
No.
Keyboard player and music director with David Letterman, or there was, you know, there've been so many different.
But every artist that came on, every pop artist from any genre, he could be the house band, and they killed it. They slayed those songs every night.
And you know, great guitar players like Larry Carlton. You were talking about Jimmy Page, but Larry Carlton did so many television shows and commercials, and you get into the ability to evolve and be able to be in the room, and again, not only get called but get called back. But you know, this also takes place, as I've been saying, with your end game, the events that you're going to, or the companies that you're going to. You know, you have to also kind of take these skills, call them soft skills, into these meetings and pitch sessions and trying to make things happen with what you've created. Because if you're really rigid and have only kind of one myopic way about you, it doesn't work. I think in the real world, out pitching songs and trying to get jobs and trying to circulate, you have to really be able to. I'll go to Musexpo and I'll see Rich, and there's like a whole other kind of crowd that comes to that event. And then I'll go to the south of France to meet him, and there's a whole other kind of crowd. And if I can't, you know, change, there's less success.
Yep. Let me, I'd like to open this up to you guys and let you guys have some time to ask questions of the panel of things that are on your mind and things that you want to know about. So just raise your hand and we'll bring a mic. What would you, yeah, over here. And then the lady in the back.
I was just wondering how you go about a session where you're writing a song for like Japan or Korea where there's a language difference and you don't speak that language.
Okay, I'd like to handle this one since I've been in that many times. I'm a Jewish white man from America, and I created K-pop. Now people say, what are you saying? I said, no, I actually created K-pop. I worked with the Blue House in Korea and Seoul as the Hollywood ambassador to Korea, and brought to iTunes a new genre which required binary Chinese characters that didn't exist prior, and we called it K-pop. That was actually where that name came from. I mean, it's J-pop and there's Chinese versions as well. But I started early on in 2003, before it was a thing, working with all, are you Korean?
No, but I'm a K-pop fan.
Okay, so what's your heritage?
Chinese, Filipino, Thai.
Okay, so first of all, Korean and foreign pop music, a lot of it was based on Western sensibilities. It was almost their rebellion from their traditional music, which was, you know, centuries old, right? Not just decades old. The rest of the world thinks in terms of centuries. We think in decades. The 90s, the 80s. How about the 1300s, right? That was a big, good time for music. The 1300s. Remember that?
Huge in the Renaissance.
So, point being, there musically, there was a simpatico and a way to start creating tracks that primarily were based on the time delay that it takes for a trend to reach Asia. Back then, when I was in the early 2000s, I was making music that came very naturally to me, which was stuff from the 80s and the 90s that was just hitting over there. And even the boys bands and things that you talked about. So musically speaking, it was about just understanding literally the logistics of what is becoming popular. But then becomes the lyric, and part of it is a lot of the foreign lyrics and books have some English in them. It might not even make sense. I love the album titles in K-pop. It's like Mirror Power Kitty, One Love Sky. Like they just pick random words that have some sort of meaning, but the fact that they're in English and that they're a little bit mysterious and cool. Gangnam Style. Does anybody know what Gangnam Style means? Okay. It sounds like gang style, right? Everybody thinks, oh, he's badass, he's from a gang, and they're just pronouncing it wrong. What is Gangnam Style? What is it? What is Gangnam? Just tell me, what do you think Gangnam is?
It was, well, actually, my friend from Korea explained to me that it's an actual area.
That's right. It means Great River, but it's actually the equivalent of Rodeo Drive in Seoul. That's Gangnam. So Gangnam Style is basically saying like, yo, I'm like flossing like BH. I'm on Rodeo Drive, and I'm looking like a fool, but very successful. Now I've worked with Boa, with Jenny Chun, with every artist from 21, Girls' Generation, G.O.D., Chinois. I could name it. Fly to the Sky. All the pop, Brown Eyed Girls, done all those records. I was producing the vocal sessions on a lot of these records. And people say, how do you do that? And I said, well, learn the language. I don't have to understand it, but I definitely need to know how to sing it. I will, the best way to produce a vocal, if possible, when possible, is to show by example. Oh, I am a singer. I started with Seth Riggs. I've sung on countless hits. Nobody may know it. I don't put my name on. But when I work with a singer, no matter what the language is, I'll be able to at least sing them. Like I'll literally like help them and go, try bending down to the chinois. I don't know what the fuck that means, but I know that it's the hook and it sounds better that way. So again, it is about trying to learn not just the universal language, but the specific, generic to that genre, and to the culture, to the people, to the style. And that's very crucial.
Good question.
Yeah, hello. Can we just take a second? We're going to add a producer to the mix here. Come on up. He was a guitarist of a band signed to Columbia Records back in the heyday of the Guns N' Roses era and all that stuff. He's a producer, produces a lot of bands right down the block here. The legendary NRG Studios with Jay Baumgartner, and lots of great stuff. Please give it up for Johnny Love.
Hi guys, Jay asked me to come down here. I've actually got to get back to the studio. I'm a little bit late. Told I'd be done by 1. Really quick, I've been fortunate enough to see all the treasures of what perseverance and hard work does in the city. And I was the producer of all our 4-track demos, which was very instrumental in us signing a 6-figure record deal towards the end of when record deals were really still happening and everything. I've also been fortunate enough to be a performer artist for huge producers, Tom Werman. Thomas Dolby was his go-to guy for about 4 or 5 years in the 90s. I've worked with Tom Jones. I'm friends with Eddie Kramer, and boy, I've got some good stories hearing from him and how to be, but mostly being a producer, and I've been listening to these guys, and it really is a collaborative thing. It's also, I'm a big stickler for pre-production. Because when you're going into expensive rooms, you need to have your band stuff, they have to have their stuff down, you know, so that you're not guessing what you're doing. Now, if you're rich, great, you want to go in and play, and you know, like Korn did, spend a year. Jay got to build his mix room C because Korn spent a year cutting their record, and about $1 million was spent there. That's a very expensive record. So I'm from the school of get your shit together. I'm open for being experimental, but that's after you have done the hard work doing pre-production and knowing everybody knows their roles and doing it. Also to have good communication and know the personality of the people you're working with. Sometimes I've been the wrong guy for the job because there's been clashes of personality. Sometimes I've been, I don't see gray a lot. I'm the kind of guy, I don't really like bullshit. So I'm kind of a white, black and white guy, you know, but sometimes you have to roll with the punches and try to, my main thing is try to inspire the people you're working with to capture that lightning in the bottle. And that comes from setting up a good environment for them to be able to feel comfortable and be creative. I gotta keep this short, I gotta get back. Apologize, I'm in the middle of dental work, getting implants. I look like a catfish right now. I told Jay, and I'm a little self-conscious about my image right now, but I was gonna do the alcohol thing, and you know. But I'm grateful to be on a stage with really successful guys. I'm more of a rock producer, but I've produced everything from gospel. I've got several Americana acts I've worked with recently. And I really dig it when I meet artists that are still song craftsmen. I'm growing up in the 60s and the 70s when people actually, the record was full of insane songs. It wasn't just a one hit, you know what I'm saying? Although, you know, if you can get that one hit, then, you know, you have a chance to get the exposure to be able to continue. Look at Tom Petty, that's a perfect example. People didn't know who he was until his third record, and all of a sudden his first two records took off. What a shame we lost such an incredible songsmith. Anyway, perseverance, believe in yourself, do the hard work, and be open for suggestions from people that you admire. That would be my suggestions to you.
Great lines.
That's totally it.
Just an interesting fact. Did you ever work, Johnny? Did you ever work with Chuck Plotnick? He produced Bruce,
yeah.
Boss. Okay, so just to Johnny's point, Bruce Springsteen plays his entire album or his music on the road for over a year before he records it out.
Right.
That's preparation.
That's what Love Hate's first record, Blackout in the Red Room, was. We were the resident band, and we started what was called the No Bozo Jam, which was free Monday nights in the late 80s, about 87 to 88. We were there for about 18 to 20 months. And we were the band, if you ever needed a band to cover, if somebody dropped out, we were like, raise our hand, we'll be there. But we did Monday nights, which was the No Bozo Jam, and then every 6 weeks or so, we would headline a Saturday night, and that's how we built our following. Well, all the songs that ended up on that first record, were tried and tested in front of an audience at the Whiskey A Go-Go. So we knew what was working and what. We had to believe it in ourselves, but if we could write a song next week, we're playing to see if the audience approved or not. So I feel I get a lot of, kudos for how strong our first record still is to this day. Mark Popoff voted as #1 on his chart list, So it still has, legs even today because it's strong from beginning to end. And so when I listen to old Led Zeppelin records, the Rolling Stones, those are albums that were just so deep.
Johnny, what album is that?
Blackout in the Red Room.
What's it called?
Blackout in the Red Room.
Blackout.
Yeah, and everybody thinks it's about drugs. Actually, it's just, drugs were involved, but we had a warehouse downtown that we called Soul House, and the bass player, who was the primary writer, and I, we would do a song in a day. He would come in, the band would learn it, we would collaborate, we would arrange it. I was the engineer. We had a 4-track and then eventually to an 8-track. But another thing, it's not how many tracks you have, it's what you put on the tracks, okay?
Sure.
But many times we had this little red floodlight that was hanging over the board. And one morning I woke up, I still had a beer in my hand, and a burnt down cigarette down the filter, skids, knocked out of the chair, and we were blacked out. So that's where the song came from, Blackout in the Room. Everybody thinks it's a heroin shooting, but no, it's actually the red floodlight over the Red Room. So but yeah, I mean, we were pot advocates, so every song was about smoking, drinking, fucking. So, anyways, it's a pleasure being here. You guys have a great time. Thank you, Jay. Thanks so much to meet all you guys.
I actually, the pre-pro thing that he was just talking about is huge. There's an amp rehearsals is right here. It's $20 an hour for a room. And the first thing I do before I start actually tracking the record is I will have the band pay for it, or the label pay for it. Sometimes I will, just because it's that important. We'll rent a room for 6 hours, and I'll bring the beers, and we'll sit there, really, we'll knock them back, and we'll run the fucking record. We will run the record. That is not something that I will not do. That's something that is part of in my schedule contract. We need at least one, if not a few days at AMP where we were running the songs. Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yes.
got the microphone.
Yeah.
I'm live streaming on YouTube. My name is Eyvette Moore. You can find me on YouTube, Eyvette Moore, singer-songwriter. And I'm on iTunes too. I have an album on iTunes. And writing songs on a regular basis in Hawaii. I'm from Hawaii and represent all the Hawaii people, Filipino people who love to sing, which is what Shell knows. He talked to me. And my question, because you asked earlier, about us artists who want to be, what is the process that we do if we have a hit song that we wrote that we believe in? What are the steps to take to make money? Just from the basic, from down to up.
This is the what do they call it? The 9,000 or the 110 gorilla in the room or something. The elephant in the room. First of all, I love that people call their songs hit songs before they're ever hits. It actually isn't a hit song. It's potentially a hit song, right? And that's something that I've learned to be humble about. I always say, it sounds like a hit, not this is a hit song. Oh, really? Right? Is it on the charts already? Did it already go to #1? Is it on the radio? Or could it possibly be on the charts? Right? So that's just about humility, but understanding the difference between sounds like a hit and it becoming a hit is, I think, what you're asking. How do we do something to further the success of our work when the creative process is done? And this is about the fact that you're in the room right now with us. That's what Shelley was saying. It's part of creating a network and creating access. I don't know about you guys, but my email is available for anybody to contact me and send me. And I will give you a great recommendation. It's super easy to pass or to say no. But if you ask me for advice, you won't fail every time. Hey, I've got this song, I would love your advice about it. Not, can you do something with this song? And my answer is no. No, I can't. But I can. But if you want advice, I'd be happy to. And 9 times out of 10, it will actually, if somebody is capable of doing something with that work and they're giving you advice, they will also do something with that work. My advice is to call Shelley, because he's working on a song about Philadelphia right now. And by the way, if you want, since your song is about Philadelphia and it's perfect for Shelley, I'd be more than happy to help make that happen for you. Whereas if you say, hey, I wrote a song about Philadelphia, can you get me a cut? No, I can't. But I can give you advice about how to do it and who to do it, and I'll even help you do that. So that's a great approach. Help me give me some advice rather than would you do something for me?
Chris Rock said something once, and it's really random for me to say Chris Rock right now, but he once said, and this resonated so deeply with me, he said, I found that if I had a flat tire and I was on the side of the road trying to fix it, more people would try to help me. If I was on the side of the road with my thumb out, nobody wanted to help me. And that really resonated with me. Help yourself and people will help you.
I think that a very brief comment about your remark, Eyvette. You still with us? Yeah. I'm working on that. I think
Thank you.
A brief comment about your inquiry. how do I make something happen with it? I've already shared with you about Rich's tremendous resources. It takes relentless effort to do this. Absolutely relentless effort to constantly pitch, to constantly demo, to constantly network, relentless effort. So we can all do that. Depending on what level and what amount you do, the results are forthcoming. But it takes relentless effort, and anybody that has any experience in working in the music industry will agree with that comment.
Yeah.
And sorry, one last thing. Next to the relentless effort, you've got to have unbelievable resilience for negativity, because whether it's David Foster or I've talked and known and have so many experiences myself of no. I don't even hear it anymore. It's absolutely doesn't exist. It's so meaningless to me. I hear no is on.
Yeah.
No with you, but on with him. On with him, no with you, on with him.
A glutton for rejection. Guys, I have been in this business 40 years, and I'm still writing cold calls and cold call letters, and to whom it makes
my whole day.
Okay, but here's the cool thing. What was your name?
Eyvette.
Eyvette?
I say Eyvette because on YouTube you can find me easier with the Eyvette.
Okay, we get it. So here's something cool. You're gonna call Mike Kern. What's his name?
Oh, Kieran.
Mike Karen. And you're gonna here's example option number 1. Hi, my name is Eyvette. You don't know me, but boy, I'd sure like for you to listen to click red or delete. Oh God, that's your over. Hi, Mike. How's it going? I was with Shelly, Peter, and Mike the other day, and your name came up, and these guys speak really highly of you, and so I thought I'd reach out. Like, they'll know who we are.
Right.
And you didn't lie. You didn't say, hey, they told me to call, or, they wanted me to speak. But the fact that there's a point of familiarity and a point of connection is a huge benefit to having what we call a network. You know why people wave to each other before they decide whether they're going to kill each other or embrace? It's because what does the hand have on it? What are these?
Fingers.
And how many?
5.
Okay. And do any other species have the same amount of digits on their hands? No. We are humans. This is who I am. You are familiar with me. I am one of you. Relax. I'm not a threat. That's what that means. If it were, this, and that's all you saw, you go, that guy's an alien, kill him.
You get away from
nuts. Okay. So the same thing goes in networking in this industry.
Yeah.
My good friend Shelly, collaborated with you on one of my favorite records. Oh, cool, Shelly? Hey, great, we're already friends. Bring it on.
Yep.
It's the
point of connection.
Approach.
And knowing that, and when to use that, so you don't seem like you're name dropping either. It's secret, it's a great example. Your network is everything. I know Johnny, who works at Food by Ramen, who knows my buddy Eric, who works in New York City at Sire, who just sent me a project from a band in Texas because they heard a band that I did from Texas 2 years ago that was on with my manager Kelly. What the fuck? How did that happen? I don't know. What's the difference?
I know that the next time I call Fueled by Ramen, my new buzz buddy Mike Pepe is going to get me in the door.
I'm going to get in the door with Johnny, who's the head of A&R there. It's like, it's all about network, and it's like you said, point of connection. Oh, this person's familiar. He's in the industry. Let's chat. Not just, like you said, hey, listen to my shit.
And you're all doing that. That's why you came to
That's
LA.
right. You're all doing great at it. You're here.
You came to IES for exactly that purpose, and you're just having it reinforced by people who are also engaged in the same campaign.
I also want to add one thing to what's been said with regards to your question. It's very important, in addition to what Peter was talking about, when you get a Mike Karen, or when you write to a Mike Karen, to not take, and this goes for anybody who's trying to get music cut or music placed in a movie. It's not that person's job to find a place for your music in their world. It's your job to serve their needs, which is to serve their artist. Mike Karen's job is to serve the 85 acts on the Warner Music Group. That's what
Yeah,
his job is.
it's a great
so
point.
yeah, so
Huge.
I think the point that I'm making is not an overall one, but have a person in mind. Do not look to Mike Karen to say, oh, why that song would be really good for.
Yeah.
No, that's your job. You need to say, this is really good for Jenny Jones, and here's why.
Right.
Here's why, Mike. So it's not just like, oh, I'm going to listen to something in some sort of void. I mean, Shelley talked about this at the beginning of that sense of direction and purpose. Very important. And I think that goes for anyone in the room who's pitching songs. I was telling, a very good music supervisor once said the same thing. It was Alex Petsavis, who's the #1 person in television. She said, you know what? No, don't ever take the attitude that it is the music supervisor's job to find a place for your music in my world. It's not. My job is to serve the vision of my television show, of my film. It's your job to help me do that. If you have a song that will work for my movie that you've researched, or for my artist who you know, or you understand what this artist is about lyrically, and you think you have the right song for this act. I mean, Clive Davis taught me that principle, that, people used to send songs back when I worked for him. This would be good for, any of your urban artists. These were like writers that would get to Clive and say that. He knew right away, he would throw those away, even though they came from people who he had relationships with. Because he said, there's a huge difference between a song that would work for Aretha Franklin versus Whitney, versus Angela Bofield, versus Dionne Warwick. And these people aren't fucking thinking. And I don't want to waste my time trying to figure out where this belongs in my world. I mean, he actually said that to me one time. It's like that, and that was like a big, and I never forgot that. And Alex Petsavis confirmed that. So I always feel that that's an important thing to add to what Peter's saying, because if you have an idea, Mike, this would be really good for whoever the act is on Mike's roster that Mike's working with. It gives him a sense of okay, I can focus this.
I'll take it one step further, and that's a great point, and it's actually something, I will normally tell people, which is, especially about music supervision. I'll give you an interesting example as well. I'm really successful at getting songs licensed. And half the time it's not just because of the music, which of course you better have a good song or the right song or a good choice. But I always say it's because I do their job for them. They are rock stars. And now, what does that mean in the world of music supervision? Okay, there's the creative choice. This is perfect. Well, we need some blues for the back of the fight scene in a bar. Well, guess what? Any blues will work if it's clearable, if it's licensable, if all the rights are in order, if the paperwork is easy enough, and if it's cheap enough. So when I approach and work with 3,000 music supervisors, thanks to his list, literally, direct, network, every one of them comes to me regularly. Why? Because they know that everything has been vetted, cleared, licensable, paperwork is done, all the writers are in agreement. It's literally a no-brainer for them. Their job is done. If you say, hey man, I've got the perfect song, and they go, this is great, and all you have to do is contact 6 writers, 4 managers, and 8 publishers, and it's yours. They're gonna go, oh God, never call me again. Do their job for them. Make their lives easier. They'll appreciate it.
It even goes further beyond the song. If I sit down with Hopeless Records or Feud by Ram and I go, hey, give me some of your bands. They're gonna be like, why? And so, but I go to Hopeless and Feud by and say, I love Dry Jacket. You just signed them. Whole Close is great. Saw them 2 years ago. Always thought they should get signed. You need to get them in with me for a few days. I'm telling you, I will kill that shit for you. Guess who came into the studio with me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's called direction. It's called doing your homework. It doesn't stop after you're done with school. You know what I mean? Do the research. You don't go to a record label and say, you have 60 bands? Pick a few, send them to me.
I'd be perfect for anybody.
Perfect for any of them. No, I'm not perfect for all 60. I'm not. I will be the first to say, I am not perfect for every band on those labels. I'm not. I'm perfect for, I hope, a couple. And I'll do the research and tell them which bands I think should come in with me. And you know what that happens is, hey, oh, you did a good job for Dry Jacket. You would be great with this other band.
By the way, Mike might wind up being more familiar with those bands than the guy who works for the label.
Yes.
And because of that, that person who risks losing their job by not knowing what that band needs will actually have a little bit of job security
Fear of
because of
God.
my
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So just that not only does that apply to songs, but just even down the line with bands and production.
This overemphasis of preparation, of really being prepared. You want success, right? You want success, but you earn it by being prepared. So going away from today's meeting, you can say, I'm really ready because I've prepared for this. I sat in a session with Wendy and Lisa. Does everybody know who Wendy and Lisa are from Prince's band? But
Revolution.
And one of the things they said that was the success of their evolution in TV music is they're so prepared. They have all the stems done. They have all the premixes done. They have all the digital files done. They have all the clearances done. Everything Peter's talking about, everything Mike's talking about, Rich is talking about. They're ready to have the job, so they get it. Nathan East talked about it. So this preparation can't be emphasized enough, and it can't be worked on enough. I mean, it's like a never-ending preparation. It's not like you get it all together. Well, now I have a new catalog of songs, or a new target that I want to reach, or a new group. There's been a whole new change of people in record labels, A&R, so it's a whole new campaign as to how to reach them, and being prepared as to how to reach Sat's disciple Tyler and the younger people who are coming in as A&R executives. The guards change all the time.
And it's fascinating. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, we're wrapping up right now. That was a great closing comment. If we could get a closing comment from Mike and then Peter.
Closing comment, just speaking in generalities here. Okay.
Give him like a big tip.
Oh, geez, okay, yeah. Oh, pressure's on. Honestly, just anyone's gonna say this, but you have got to just work. I go into my studio 6 days a week, and there's months when I go in 7 days a week, and it's not because sometimes I don't have work, but I go in and I get work done. I practice, I listen, I do the research, I do the homework. There's no truer thing, there's no truer industry, I don't think, than just doing the work and perseverance. It does work. I mean, there was a point where I felt like this is never gonna happen, and then I got a #1 record. It does happen. You do have to work. There's no shortcuts.
So, I don't know a lot of people that can say that they've had top 10 songs every year for 40 years. I haven't. And when people say, how do you stay relevant? How do you stay current? I say, I'm a student of youth culture. I study this shit. I work, I prepare, I do. And the last thing, and I just came up with this idea as you said this. Students strive to be professionals. Professionals strive to be students.
That's a good quote right there, people. Holy shit.
That's a good one. Well, again, what an amazing session. So much going on. We please give it up for Shelley Sondheim, Peter Rafelson, Mike Papa, and Rich Ezra. Please. Thank you so much. Let's get a picture, guys. Come on. Where's he in?